You didn't just learn about debt, you learned how to use it. Debt is really easy to take on, almost impossible to escape once it's running your life. And here's the part that trips most people up. They treat every kind of debt like it's the same enemy. It's not. Some debt builds you a future. Some debt burns your future to the ground. And if you don't know the difference, you're going to keep making the same mistake your parents made, your friends are making right now, and honestly, the mistake I almost made too. So stick with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this, you're going to look at every loan, every credit card, every 0% interest offer completely differently. And trust me, that last one is going to surprise you. Here's the thing nobody explains properly. Debt isn't good or bad. It's a tool. A hammer can build a house or break a window. Same tool, completely different outcome, depending on how you use it. Debt works the same way. The question was never, should I go into debt? The question is, what is this debt actually doing for me? And most people never stop to ask that. They just borrow and hope. So let's start with the split. Good debt versus bad debt. Good debt is debt that grows in value, generates income, or builds a skill that increases your earning power over time. Bad debt is debt that loses value the second you use it and keeps costing you money for something that gives nothing back. That's it. That's the whole filter. Does it build something, or does it just disappear? Keep that one sentence in your head, because we're going to run almost everything through it. Let's use two examples everyone already understands: a mortgage and an expensive car loan. A mortgage is one of the most common examples of good debt. When it's done right, you're borrowing money to buy an asset that historically tends to increase in value over time. Every payment you make builds equity, meaning you actually own more of something real. And here's the part people forget. You are going to pay for housing either way, rent or mortgage. The money was leaving your pocket regardless. The difference is one of those options eventually ends with you owning something. The other one ends with you owning nothing and starting from zero again. Now compare that to an expensive car loan. The moment you drive that car off the lot, it starts losing value. Cars are famous for this. Some lose over 20% of their value in the first year alone. So now you're paying interest every single month on an asset that is actively becoming worth less than what you owe on it. That's not building anything. That's just renting money to lose money slower. Same category, debt. Wildly different outcome, because one builds and one drains. But here's where it gets interesting, because car loans aren't always bad debt. Stay with me. If you're financing a reliable car, specifically because it lets you take a job that pays significantly more, or start a business that needs transportation, that loan just became a tool for income. Not just a toy. The car itself still loses value. That part never changes, but the debt attached to it can still be good if what it unlocks is worth more than what it costs. This is the trap most people fall into. They assume the category decides whether debt is good, when really, it's the purpose behind it. Now let's do the same comparison with something a lot of you are actually dealing with right now: student loans versus consumer debt. Student loans get a bad reputation, and sometimes that reputation is earned. But the core idea behind them, when used correctly, is investing in your own future earning potential. You're borrowing money now so that future, you can earn significantly more than you would have without that education or skill, if the math works out, meaning the increase in your income actually outweighs the cost of the loan. That's good debt. It's an investment in the most valuable asset you'll ever have, yourself. Consumer debt is a different story entirely. This is credit card debt from things that disappeared the moment you bought them. Clothes you don't wear anymore, food you already ate, a vacation you already took. There's nothing left to show for it except the bill. And that bill comes with some of the highest interest rates you'll ever encounter. You're not investing in anything. You're paying extra, sometimes double or triple extra, for something that's already gone. And here's a sentence that's going to sting a little. Most people aren't in debt because life is unfair to them. They're in debt because they borrowed money to buy things that made them feel rich for a weekend, instead of things that would have actually made them rich over time. That's not a judgment. That was me too, at one point. But it's the truth. And the truth is the only thing that actually fixes this. Here's where it gets weird though. A lot of people avoid all debt because they've only ever seen the bad kind. And I get it. If your only experience with borrowing money is credit cards and high-interest loans, of course debt looks like the enemy. But that fear ends up costing you too, because it keeps you from ever using leverage to actually build wealth. Playing it safe by avoiding all debt isn't actually safe. It just means you're leaving one of the most powerful wealth-building tools sitting completely unused. So what does using debt to build wealth actually look like? It looks like borrowing at a low interest rate to buy an asset that either appreciates or generates income when the numbers genuinely make sense. Real estate is the classic example. You put down a fraction of the total price, the bank covers the rest, and you control an asset worth far more than your own cash could have bought alone. If that property increases in value or brings in rental income, the debt didn't hurt you, it multiplied you. Businesses use this exact same logic. A business loan used to buy equipment that increases production, or to hire someone who brings in more revenue than their salary cost, isn't reckless spending, it's leverage. You're using someone else's money to grow something that pays you back more than it cost. This is also where a business line of credit comes in, and it's worth understanding because it works differently from a normal loan. Instead of borrowing one lump sum, you get access to a pool of money you can pull from whenever you need it, and you only pay interest on what you actually use. Used well, it smooths out cash flow gaps, so a business never misses an opportunity just because money hasn't landed yet. Used poorly, it becomes a slow leak that quietly drains a business from the inside. But here's the catch. And this is the part people skip because it's not exciting. Good debt only stays good debt if you actually do the math. Borrowing for a rental property that barely breaks even, or a business loan for an idea that was never properly tested. That's not leverage. That's still bad debt wearing a good debt costume. Let's talk about one more sneaky one. Medical debt. This one's different from everything else we've covered, because it's usually not a choice in the moment. Nobody plans an emergency room visit. But here's what makes it dangerous. Because it doesn't feel like spending. People treat it differently than they'd treat, say, credit card debt from a shopping spree. They let it sit. They ignore the notices. And medical debt, left untouched, can quietly wreck your credit the same way any other unpaid bill can. The lesson here isn't avoid getting sick. It's this. Debt you didn't choose still needs a plan, just as urgently as debt you did choose. And since we're on the topic of things that sneak up on you, let's talk about the offer that tricks more people than almost anything else. 0% interest. Sounds perfect, right? Free money. No cost. What's the catch? Here's the catch. 0% is almost always temporary, and it usually applies only if you pay off the full balance before a specific date. Miss that date by even 1 day, and some cards retroactively charge you interest on the entire original amount, not just what's left. That harmless purchase you made with your 0% card 6 months ago just became one of the most expensive things you've ever bought. This is exactly why the 3-question filter matters so much, because on paper, 0% looks like the safest debt in the world. In practice, it's often one of the easiest ways to accidentally end up back on the bad debt list. So before you take on any debt, ask yourself 3 questions. Does this asset or skill increase in value or income over time? Is the return realistically higher than the interest I'm paying? And can I actually afford the payments if things don't go exactly as planned? If you can't answer yes to all 3, slow down. That excitement you're feeling isn't a strategy. And let's be honest about the emotional side of this too, because debt isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's stress. It's that tight feeling in your chest when a payment is due and you're not sure it's covered. Good debt shouldn't feel like that. At least not long term. If a debt is keeping you up at night with no plan in sight, that's your gut telling you something the spreadsheet already knows. Here's another thing worth mentioning. Interest rate isn't the only factor, but it matters a lot. A 4% mortgage and a 24% credit card are not remotely the same risk, even if the dollar amounts look similar on paper. Low interest debt on an appreciating asset gives you room to breathe and grow. High interest debt on a depreciating item just compounds against you every single month you don't pay it off. That compounding is the quiet part nobody warns you about. It doesn't feel dangerous month 1. It feels dangerous around month 18, when you realize you've paid back the original amount twice over and somehow still owe more than you started with. So here's how you actually apply all of this starting now. First, separate your existing debt into 2 lists. One list for anything tied to an appreciating asset or increased earning potential. Another list for anything that's just gone, with nothing left to show for it. Seeing it laid out like that changes how it feels immediately. Most people have never actually done this. They just feel a vague sense of dread about debt as one giant blob. Splitting it into 2 lists turns a scary feeling into an actual plan. Second, attack the second list first. High interest. No ongoing value. That's the debt that's actively working against you every single day it exists. Pay minimums on the low interest good debt, and throw everything extra at the bad debt until it's gone. Third, before you borrow anything new, run it through the 3 questions. Does it grow? Is the return higher than the cost? Can you handle it if plans change? If it fails that test, walk away, no matter how good the sales pitch sounds. And the better the sales pitch sounds, the more important that 3rd question becomes. And finally, stop treating all debt like it's one thing. That mindset either makes you reckless with bad debt or too scared to ever use good debt. Neither one builds wealth. Understanding the difference is what actually does. So separate the debt that builds you from the debt that drains you. Attack the draining debt first, and use leverage only when the math actually backs you up. You didn't just learn about debt, you learned how to use it.